Do you remember when I said the balls episodes should be reasonably easy to keep short in the new year? Iron Balls, a podcast about sports. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's here too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
All right.
Lori is all right. Tonight is Monday, January 13th, 2025. We are 1 week away from the inauguration of Donald John Trump as the 47th president of the United States, unless Kamala and Joe Biden work together to do the single funniest thing that you can imagine, which is to ruin all of Trump's 47 merch that currently exists out there in the wild and on his merch store, and make Kamala the 47th president of the United States. This is the sports show. We're not talking about this. We're 1 week away from the national title game, Abe, and it will be between the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, Our Lady, up there in Indiana, against the behemoth that is an Ohio State University.
A blue team and a red team is what's important.
Yeah, that's true.
Not a red team and a red team. Not a blue and a green. Nice.
Awesome semifinal football games,
yes.
Both of them.
Finally, we had a good batch of games. I think, Bob, you mentioned that in years past, the divisional round of the NFL that weekend, people talk up, and you were like, well, maybe this weekend, because there was a Thursday, Friday college football schedule, and the Saturday, Sunday, plus tonight when we're recording.
Plus tonight, that's right. Very important. We must live bet the games before we go any further. It is Monday night. The final wild card round game kicks off, not from Los Angeles, but from Arizona, because of the wildfires out there happening, or really urban wildfires, I guess, happening there in Los Angeles. And instead of playing it in LA, they're playing it in, was it Glendale? I don't know. Somewhere there in one of Arizona's major cities.
Division rivals hosting each other. That's pretty nice, right?
Yeah, Vikings and the Rams. Vikings now a 2.5 point favorite. The line opened at 1.5 points, but during Abe Live-Bets the Games, we do not worry about silly things like point spreads. You just call these games straight up. You called an NBA game on the money.
Easy.
Last week, Abe.
Easy.
You were on fire. Who you got tonight?
This is actually one of my picks for the college. The pick'em games, and I had the Rams. But I have the flexibility now to decide, right? Since it's live, I can change course with this.
Well, sure.
Your
Your pick in the pick'em stays the same, certainly.
Yeah, that stays the same. But the live pick can be anything.
Sure.
I don't have to be committed to what I picked before.
Of course not.
It's live, so I'm going to go with the Rams.
I don't like that pick at all, Abe. I've got the Vikings, both in the pick'em and also. This would complete Jimmy Carter's.
At this point, Abe has picked both teams, so
that's true. He's on both sides.
No, I'm on the same side.
No, he's staying on the same side. He's sticking with the Rams. He needs the Rams to win to vault into the lead in the CIB pick'em game. We might as well recap that now, as long as we're here. It's not quite complete because Steve, Abe, and I are all on this game tonight. I've got the Vikings minus 1.5. Abe and Steve both have the Rams as the money line underdog. Now 2.5 points. Abe, you're perfect this week so far. Notre Dame, Ohio State, the Commies, and the Eagles. And I am also perfect so far. Both of the college games same? And then the Eagles and the Commies. Sorry?
We picked the same four, and we diverge here on this Monday night game, right?
Yes, that's correct. We had the exact same picks. And I will note that mine were in the spreadsheet first. So
something's got to give tonight, though. We can't be both perfect.
Yeah. That puts me at, let's see, 5, 10, 15. I've got 25 points going into tonight with a maximum score of 30. You've got 15-25 with a maximum score of 35 if things turn out right for you. Lori picked up 14 points this week and goes to 29 points overall. Cousin Steve came in as the leader with 35 points. We trail him.
We have to be nice to Cousin Steve.
By 10, and he got 2 out of the 4 games so far correct. So he's added 10 points to his situation and needs 10 more points. I believe that would give him a tie. You and he would be tied, I think, if the Rams win tonight. And then otherwise, I will be alone atop the leaderboard if the Vikings win tonight. As long as we're also talking about gambling, we might as well now talk about the fact that Jimmy Carter not only hit his pick last week, the minus 5.5 points for Ohio State, he also gave a bonus presidential parlay lock of the week. And number 5 can hit tonight if the Vikings win by more than 1 point. If the Vikings win by 2 points, then President Jimmy Carter's presidential parlay of the week hits. And if you'd place the bet, as I did on Thursday afternoon, your $20 bet could turn into a cool $622 if things go correctly for the Vikings tonight.
What would the buyout on that be?
About $300 at the moment. For if you would hypothetically,
you could magically, without anything else happening, turn $20 into $300 whatever dollars, and so you're turning that down, which tracks.
Ooh, buyout down to $283. Just a few minutes ago, it was $295. I did, however, I must acknowledge, this is nothing if not total transparency when it comes to gambling and all other truths. I have hedged like a coward. I have put $122 on the Los Angeles Rams plus 2.5 to win this game, which means that there is a possible scenario here where if the Vikings win by 2, I claim both ends. Yes. I'm getting it in both directions, which would be fucking spectacular. That's just greedy, though.
Yes. You're not doing it for that. You're not doing it for that unlikely scenario.
I mean, sort of. It would. I'm certainly going to stay awake and watch the end of this game tonight, no matter what happens.
Can't get sick. We have a vacation planned.
It's an 8
that is
o'clock
mostly
kick.
paid for.
It's fine. It's an 8 o'clock kick. Everything's going to be fine. It'll be done by 11:15 or something. Totally fine. Yeah. But that's what we're rooting for tonight. We are rooting for, as I said before we started recording, the ideal scenario is the great Matt Stafford is down by 8 points with less than 2 minutes to go and leads the Rams charging down the field to attempt to get that game-tying score, and they score the touchdown. That he throws it to I don't know, Cooper Kupp or whoever,
Nakua.
Puka Nacua, Cooper, whoever's on that team. They score the touchdown, they get the 6, and then they fail to convert the 2-point conversion, and the Sam Darnold-led Vikings proceed to the next round with a 2-point win, and I make a nice pile of money. That's the ideal scenario. Also, it must be said, my last couple weeks in the gambling app have not been great, and so this is in classic me gambling fashion. I've established a scenario in which the subsistence gambling habit that I have is guaranteed to maintain itself basically after tonight. It's just, once again, I've gone through a season of football gambling and came out more or less exactly even.
You're
from
treading
where I
water.
started the season.
Right. Yeah.
That's good. Classic me and gambling situation, which is, to my credit, better than classic Abe when it comes to gambling.
So classic that I stopped gambling.
That was smart.
Yes. I mean, if I were any better at it, I would still be doing it.
We were watching these gambling videos. These people gamble so much.
Going to Vegas in
it's so crazy.
A couple weeks or whatever it is now. When are we leaving?
Next Friday.
A week from Friday. And I'm not big on slots. I'll say it now before we go. Like the notion of just sitting in front of the machine.
SLOTS.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
The notion of just like sitting in front of a machine, like a video screen, and just hitting the button over and over again.
And it's 100% chance. Or there's no element that you can manipulate, right?
There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
They've got all of these. Everybody's got their methods. like you go on YouTube and it's like, beat the slots, be a pro, and this is how the experts get it done. And the thing that they must acknowledge is that if you just sit at the slots long enough, you will lose all your money. Like that, the fundamental thing that they have to try to get into your head if you're trying to quote unquote beat Vegas is you have to realize that if you sit there playing the slot machine long enough, you will lose all of your money.
Yeah.
And so it's like the moment that you find yourself up, you put $20 in the machine and now you have $35, fucking cash out and run away.
Right.
Like just take that money and literally go put $20 in some other machine somewhere else some other time and see what happens with that $20. And if that eventually gets a little bit higher, fucking hit that button and cash out and run away. Because the longer you sit there in front of that machine, the more of a guarantee it is that all of your money will end up in the hands of the
So that's the strategy. As soon as you're up, get out. Like there's no as soon as you double
that
your money.
obviously has to be. As soon as you're up, get out.
So like, what if do they give you any advice? Like if you're just watching some loser on the slots, like and they've been at it for like 30 minutes. When they leave, you should get on that machine, right? Because the numbers, it's got to bounce back up, right?
apparently it's not how it works.
That's what you would think, yeah. And then they turn around and they watch you hit like a $250 jackpot, and they're like, you fucking son of a bitch, I'll kill you.
I warmed it up for you. Let's put it, yeah.
But no, it's a random number generator that generates like hundreds of options a second, right? And it's just like the moment that you hit that button, your fate is sealed. And then the video does the fancy dance that it does to make your brain chemicals get excited. But ultimately, it's all been decided the moment that you reach out and the nerve at the end of your fingertip just presses it down just enough.
Every time that I've been to Vegas and I'm going to one of the like other games, but there are slot machines everywhere as you're walking about. The people who play slot machines never have the body language of like excitement. They're always just kind of like just slouching and just kind of like resigned to this thing.
It's my favorite thing about watching these Vegas videos is that the presenters are always very personable and like high energy because they're the sort of person who wants to put their big stupid face on a YouTube thumbnail. Like the YouTube face that people make in order for because the algorithm is so fucking stupid that you have to make yourself look like that,
yes,
apparently, in order to satisfy the algorithm. Says a lot about like just it's an outright advertisement that in order to succeed in this business, with being a YouTube personality, it's a humiliation ritual.
It
like
is.
on top, like purely, it is advertised as presented as a humiliation ritual.
There are otherwise like normal YouTube people who still have to abide by this ritual, and it's always like, oh man, you should be better than this, but you have to play ball, to be on YouTube
Apparently
and make any money.
Anyway, the best part about it is that these are like outgoing, happy people who want to generally put out videos on YouTube, right? And the sort of person that you're attracted to where you want to spend 25 minutes with them as they go around a casino or really anything else, this is going to be a happy, outgoing person. Yeah. So that's the person who's doing the let me teach you how to gamble in Vegas like a pro thing, but in the background, because it's a public space, right? You've got the guy with the cigarette drooping out of his mouth who's nursing like a 72-ounce big gulp in his lap and who's 140 pounds overweight and hasn't shaved in a week and just looks like fucking something that cat dragged in.
They're gambling hundreds of dollars as though it's nothing.
It's crazy.
They're like, okay, so let's play with $500 today. It's like,
right?
What?
Well, it's because it's a game of attrition, right? So like they casually
just all right, 200 for this machine. It's like 200. Right. That's a nice
and
dinner.
These are not independently wealthy people.
Right.
These are more or less like working people.
Right. Appearances can be deceiving. It's not like they're giving us their totals, but you can see that some people don't have the money. They're either like on fixed income, like retirees.
Of course.
There was one of these guys on YouTube who did give us showed us his spreadsheet of wins and losses since 2021, and the staggering number is not necessarily the I lost $7,000 or I lost $11,000 in the slots. But then he's doing this magic math where he's like, but with comps, I got comps, and so I didn't pay for my room, and so that's minus 11,000. But like we got 9,000 in comps, so it's really only minus 2,000. Plus it was a lot of fun, and we got fucking coupons for shows and whatnot. It's like if you massage the math here, this actually I almost broke even. Yes. Also, the line item in the spreadsheet that he did not highlight is like, okay, money put in slots this year, and it's $72,000.
What?
Like what? You put 72 grand into the machine? Like, granted, his losses for the year are only 7 or 11 grand, right? So like ultimately, there's a lot of wins in there every time you hit the button.
But he's still down, right? It's a negative month,
right? He's still net down because if you spend that much time in front of the fucking slot machine, unless you get spectacularly lucky, you're going to lose money. It's just the nature of the thing. It is literally programmed into it, right? Like it's just the way it works is it's like an insurance company, right? All the talk about the insurance companies over the last month or so since Luigi went and murdered a guy in cold blood. It's like the insurance companies are permitted to make X amount of dollars every year, and they have to spend 80+% just on paying out claims to people, right? Just on care. So the insurance company is heavily regulated in terms of the amount of profit they can make. The casino is the exact same way, right? The slot machine there on the casino floor is heavily regulated, and it is by law how much that casino is permitted to make on that machine, and it's a great deal. Is the bottom line.
It will always be surprising to me that people enjoy it at all, and do it so much. Not just enjoy it a little, because like that's one level of I don't get it. Like, why is this fun? This thing with no skill whatsoever. Why is that fun at all? And then the amount that people do it. It's like.
I mean, it is purely just the thing that makes us reach for our phones 100 times a day, but like taken to like a hypodermic needle level of brain hacking psychology stuff that they do. It is just talking to the dumbest possible parts of your psychology, trying to get you to hit that button again.
And also, I imagine that they're not having a lot of fun at that point. Like it must be just an addiction that you're feeding. Like you have to. Like there's a compulsion to play, because that's a lot. I mean, in a year, maybe that's just one example. That's a lot of money to throw into slot machines. And,
well, we got to talk about football.
Yeah, I mean, it's remarkable that somebody would spend that much money.
This is all pre-Vegas talk. We're gonna have a lot to talk about.
Probably won't. We probably will
not
have a lot to talk about. Everybody will be cranky.
Anyway, let's talk about the college football games. They were great. There's no getting around it. A couple of awesome games. Let's first discuss the first game, which was the Notre Dame Fighting Irish against the Penn State Nittany Lions. As Lori suggested, thoughts and prayers with cousin Steve.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
As the Penn Staters kept it close, made it certainly an interesting game, but ultimately could not get the job done.
I mean, they were up 10-0 at the beginning. Then
that's right, up 10-0. This is a game that it felt like Notre Dame kind of kept trying to give away.
Yes.
Also, like it was a game that was absolutely Penn State's for the taking, and they just couldn't fucking do it. I said all year that I didn't think that Drew Aller was going to be able to play hero ball, and that turned out to be more or less correct. He had a perfectly fine game, though, as I recall. Just the one pick. He goes 12 for 23 for 136 yards. They didn't rely on him much.
Just the one pick? When did that one pick happen? I mean, that was like a catastrophic pick.
Yeah.
When did that one pick happen?
At the very end, when it was tied and they were about to go to overtime, and they're like,
going to win. They were going to go win.
That's right.
Well, it was going to go to overtime.
But at least
it's been too long. I'd forgotten exactly how that game ended.
There's been a lot of football between
and
now
I think, Bob, you mentioned in the group chat that I think one of the broadcasters, was it the former Alabama quarterback?
It was McElroy.
It was Greg McElroy.
Oh, God.
Oh, I have to pull that up. It was so spectacular. I won't bother finding the clips.
I have it on Twitter.
No, do you?
Yeah.
It's great when that happens.
All right, so this is going to be Greg McElroy at the end of the game as Penn State attempts to.
He had done this once before in this game.
At halftime, I don't have the clip for that ready at the moment. Maybe I can find it before we go to air here, so to speak. But coming out of the half, McElroy said something like, the path of least resistance is going to be through the air for the Irish if they want to get back in this game.
Because right now, the path of least resistance for Notre Dame is going to be through the air. They're just having a really tough time getting any movement in the run game. So they're going to have to trust these wide receivers and tight ends and find some matchups against a secondary that was locked down for a majority of the first half.
Jeremiah Love, the ball carrier. Banged down by A.J. Harris and Zakee Wheatley, a gain of 6. Love staggers close to a first down.
So far, just 2 snaps into the second half, I like already the adjustments that Notre Dame has made in the run game.
And then they complete one pass, I think, on their 75 or 80-yard march down the field. The rest of it is just Notre Dame absolutely pounding the shit out of the rock. Just run after run after run, proving Greg McElroy immediately wrong.
Yes.
Just he sets the narrative for the second half, and Riley Leonard turns around and puts it in his running back's belly like 6 times in a row. Right. It was fucking fantastic.
It's the immediate payoff is what makes it, because sometimes they will say something at the beginning of the game, the keys to the game, and then like 3 quarters later it will be the opposite. But in this case, like he says it, and then the opposite thing happens, and the same thing happened with the fourth quarter situation.
And this is my criticism of McElroy, as I think I expressed earlier this season, is usually the things that he says are perfectly sensible and defensible in any given moment, but he's so quick to change the narrative of, like, from sentence A to sentence C. Something incredibly important happened in between there that completely disproved anything about sentence A, but he's just on to sentence C. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. Which is to his credit as a broadcaster. Don't look back.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why bother looking back? But at the end of the game here, the question arises. Notre Dame has just tied the game, right? It's 24-24. There's less than a minute to go, and Penn State has got the ball deep in their zone. And it's like, what do we do now? Do we play for the win? Do we see what we can do? And maybe you bang off a quick 10 or 15 yard screen or something, and then it's like, we might be cooking with something here. Let's try to at least get into a field goal range. Or do you go all out and say, we're going to do everything we can, be super aggressive, and try to win this game now? Or third option, look, we're into overtime, right? Why not just play some overtime football against this injury-depleted Notre Dame team who we hung with much more than most people thought we would coming in? But here's McElroy on what he thinks Penn State should do.
47 seconds to go. You aggressive or you cautious?
I'm aggressive. I mean, I got 2 timeouts. I feel like the momentum's been back and forth. The quarterback, for the most part, all season long, his whole career, Drew Aller's made good decisions. He's got 50-plus touchdowns, only 9 career interceptions. He's not likely a guy that's going to put the ball in harm's way. I trust him. I think he can do it. And I would empower him in this situation to drive him down the field for a game-winning field goal.
I think it was 2 plays later, right?
Yeah, I think 2 plays.
That he throws a ball across the field for no good reason at all.
Yeah, no, and, that's what's weird about it. Like, I guess his progression got him to like, oh, this seems like an open opportunity, and it wasn't.
He's not likely a guy that's going to put the ball in harm's way. I trust him. I think he can do it, and I would empower him in this situation.
Aller hit as he throws, and it is intercepted! They got aggressive, and it has blown up on them as they turn it over for the first time tonight. Snead came on a blitz.
And it was a huge mistake by Drew Aller. Wants to work left, works all the way back, and you can never throw a lane over the middle. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. You want to make a play for your team, but you cannot throw it blind from that far away.
He said afterwards that he was just trying to throw it into the dirt in front of what was happening there, that he was trying to just throw it away, essentially, and it got away from him a little bit, and it sailed on him, and therefore went right into the other team's hands, which now they're on the plus side of the field, and all Notre Dame needs is a first down or 2 to kick a long field goal to win the game, which they do with Mitch Jeter who, as was mentioned, I think roughly a half a dozen times throughout the broadcast by the McElroy McDonough booth there, that his father is a chiropractor who'd flown to South Bend to give Mitch Jeter some adjustments and to make sure that Mitch was in shape for the big game. I don't think that you could come up with a name off the top of your, like, you could not invent a name that was more disreputable to me. Like, just Mitch Jeter are two names that are deeply unappealing to me as a anti-Yankee, and also just someone who's Mitch. Like, Mitch is not a pleasant name. But Mitch Jeter is an unpleasant name. I was rooting for Mitch to hit the long field goal. There's a clip that I don't know if anybody's clipped it or not. I should clip it.
Oh, they have. Oh, it got opposite of your thoughts on the Facebook that I saw.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
So
people, you say it.
My thoughts watching the end of this game where Mitch Jeter is kicking the field goal to win it, to send Notre Dame into the national title game 10 days later, or whatever the time is. Dad is there, and Dad has the phone out.
Yes, recording.
And is filming.
In landscape.
And to his credit, to the great chiropractor Daddy Jeter's credit, he's got the phone in landscape mode. So he's at least catching a correct version of reality with his phone there. However, he is a person who is at a complete remove from the goings-on around him.
I don't think he's removed.
He is not demonstrative. McDonough even makes a comment as he watches the clip of Dad videoing the field. Instead of watching it live, instead of participating in the moment live in an unmediated sort of way, you went to the fucking game so that you could take your phone out of your pocket and take a video of it. But ESPN's got 27 fucking 4K
there might be another shot that
cameras.
might be better.
You know what? Once he took the recording, he did, do some clumsy high fives with the people around him.
His dad looks on. Graduate student from Salisbury, North Carolina, to give Notre Dame the lead in the final seconds. 41-yard attempt. Snap and hold are good. The kick is good! They were the worst field goal kicking team in the country in the regular season, but Jeter, healthy, recovered from the groin with the help from his dad, Andrew, the chiropractor. This is what he's dreamed about his whole life. Dad is remarkably calm, isn't he? Made sure he captured the picture. And then celebrated with his wife, Stacy.
He then puts the phone into his pocket calmly, as McDonough says. He calmly puts the phone away and then turns around and does the awkward dad high fives, as you're saying here. Sorry, you missed the moment.
So
you literally missed the thing happen as it was happening, and you could not enjoy it in the way that you should have. You have impoverished this experience for yourself moving forward.
So, but it's different because it's Little League, but I record all of what Calvin is doing. And so when I do it, the reason the videos might not be great is because I'm not watching it through the phone. I'm watching it in real life, and I'm holding the phone, hopefully capturing what is happening.
Right. Lori's camera angles notoriously suck. And also, she's the only person videoing it there. So the reason that she's videoing is so
I'm the
that
only one.
Otherwise we wouldn't have any video of the event as it happened. And it's fun to go back and watch it later. And you can sort of do, even though it's from center field, the boy likes to see it. It's a teaching moment also sometimes, because things will happen that you can sort of coach him up for afterwards. But that's obviously a different thing.
It's obviously different, but also, okay, so on Facebook, some fucking, I don't know how Facebook works anymore, but it was like...
Almost certainly no one you know and no page that you follow. It's just
some random...
Facebook is just fucking Twitter now in terms of the front page.
But my Twitter is good. It's all people I chose. So Facebook is truly random. It's like that moment, and the comments are... over, like, there's no that I saw, I did not read all of them, because I clicked on it because I wanted to see if people thought the same thing you did, which is like, why is this guy fucking doing this? Complete opposite. Everybody's like, how lovely that the dad, even though he knows that the whole thing's on camera, wants his own video of his son. So like that, I'm not saying they're right, but I at the same time am saying that he wasn't necessarily not in the moment. Like he definitely was.
He was not in the moment. You can see him. You can see on his face got the fucking dead eyes of someone looking into a screen, and then
you don't know him. You, after you won the district championship, just seemed sort of meh.
I was very excited for the children.
Yes, but
what are you talking about? I'm going to leap into the 12-year-old's arms or something in that moment?
No, but that's the thing. If someone didn't know you, they would have thought, like, he doesn't even seem happy.
Is it possible
You don't
that
know him.
This is a coping mechanism? You know, like he's like so stressed. He's like, I need to have a job to do something. Otherwise,
Just
I'd be
stoic.
freaking out, you know? And so, like, his energy is channeled in this, let me record this. I've been doing this for, 15 years.
The point is that we don't know what his reaction to the moment is going to be or could have been. I don't know if he's a very stoic person who wouldn't.
Chiropractors tend to be.
Sure. I don't know what sort of reaction he might have had if he were experiencing that moment in an unmediated sort of way, and neither does he. And that's the point, is that he did not experience the moment in any sort of pure way. Instead, he did it as mediated through the screen so that he could watch it on his phone at some point in the future. I don't understand the instinct. I don't understand why you would impoverish your experience in that fashion. And also, after our conversation last week on the big show, the Real CIB, those are all AIs. That was Liv, the proud black mama, who's excited about the fact that this guy is taking care of his son in that way. No, those are robots.
Right.
Anyway, do we think that was the correct decision? I mean, obviously, in retrospect, it's like I guess you play for overtime. But is it defensible? Is James Franklin's decision to sort of go for it all there in that moment with less than a minute to go?
So there were, as it shows here on the screen, 47 seconds left. I think they were inside their own 20. So typically, you would go for like a run, see what happens. If you can kind of get like a 10-yarder, you have a little more breathing room, then come back and then try something else, maybe a pass, get to midfield, kind of see where you're at. Like this is the situation where you don't do anything unnecessary. You don't go to your third read. Like if two of them are not available, just throw it out of bounds or do something else, right? Don't take any risks because the the overtime format, the ball's on the 25. So every time you have the ball, you can score a touchdown. It's more advantageous to you than trying to go 60 yards to kick a field goal or something, right? So like,
right. You don't even necessarily want to throw it out of bounds there. If you can just you've got timeouts, they've got timeouts. If you take a sack and now you're 2nd and 25, then Notre Dame is calling a timeout, right? So you can't take a sack.
Right.
But if you scramble and now it's like 2nd and 11 or it's 2nd and 7 or something like that, probably both coaches at that point are like, let's just see what the other guy's going to do.
Yeah.
Right? Clock ticks a little, clock ticks a little bit more, and then you can run one more play. It's more or less a free play at that point. It's like, okay, what happened now? And you don't call something wild and super aggressive in that moment. You call a quick slant, or you call something that's highly reliable for you inside your offense that keeps your quarterback playing within the game that he's been playing all season long. And then you make your decision with 35 seconds to go or something like that.
Also, I've never heard of a quarterback throw the ball away in the middle of the field. Right, I know he was saying like the ball sailed away from him, but that's
he might be doing some cope there. Who knows?
That's a weird placement for like trying to get rid of the ball. That was a great catch by the defender.
Trying to throw an incomplete, like what Aaron Murray should have done in 2012.
Yeah.
What? Just ditching it into the dirt? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, he threw it quite a long ways to be ditching it into the dirt.
It's
not a believable.
Yeah, it's not plausible, right?
Him.
I mean, he was trying to get it there, and it didn't get there. But like this, because it's not like you get like any sort of benefit by having it be like a foot away. You could have just thrown it on the ground like 10 yards out, and it would have been fine.
McElroy has another moment in the moments after the pick And he doesn't go back. I don't think they correct the record there on whether or not he should have been aggressive in that moment, or whether that was a trustworthy individual, Drew Aller, as it turns out.
That's probably some advice he got from like some seasoned person, like when he first got into the broadcasting career. Never look backwards, kid.
Right.
Just move forward.
McElroy then, despite the fact that Drew Aller has just thrown a terrible season-ending pick, or potentially season-ending pick here, is now concerned about Notre Dame scoring too quickly the back end.
Yes.
Like, well, we don't want to give Drew Aller, who might secretly be in the medical tent, literally ripping his face off like in Total Recall style, where the mask comes off and underneath there is Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. We don't want to give Pat Mahomes there in the Drew Aller skin more than 12 or 13 seconds. You'll remember, Pat Mahomes got off with 13 seconds left, right? Or whatever it was. We don't want to leave any time on the clock for Drew Aller.
Was very weird. There were parts of my Twitter who were like, are the commentators, do they not see the same clock that we're seeing?
Yeah.
Like, are we not in the same universe? Are they confused?
Now, Marcus Freeman can also acknowledge here at some point is, hey, we don't want to score too quick here. So if you break free...
Well, I think they're playing for the field goal, right?
They're
going to run a couple more plays and try to kick it on fourth down if it works out that way.
Right.
Or get another first down and kick it on what they hope will be the last play.
But if you break free, and right there, Riley Leonard wasn't far from potentially squeaking there and maybe finding a lot of open space. So remind your guys, here, no need to score a touchdown. If you need to kneel on it at the 3-yard line and we take a couple more knees, no problem. Do not find the end zone here to give Penn State a chance to go down and potentially tie it with their own touchdown.
Even if you could break free and score from here, because where they are right now, this is far from a gimme field goal. So you're saying run down close and stop.
Yes, get down to the 5-yard line, slide down on your behind, kneel it 3 times, force them to use the timeouts and kick the game winner from about 25 yards away.
It was very weird.
Yeah, it was very weird how they were talking about the last few plays. It's like, what did Notre Dame doing?
Score right away.
Like, yeah, it's like,
why not?
He even said, and this is as galaxy brain to take. It's nearly as galaxy brain to take as John Smoltz's old complaint about the 3-run home run, which I'm sure I've talked about before. Yeah. But Smoltz, when he was first, it used to be really good, and then he became a little bit too much of a auto contrarian, and then also an anti advanced metrics kind of guy. And has sort of lost me a little bit, including especially a take that I heard him unleash one night, which was, you don't always want the 3-run homer. That can sometimes kill a rally. You'd rather have a single or a double here rather than the 3-run homer, just so you can keep things moving. It's like, what are you talking about? You would take the single that gets one in and just moves everybody up 90 feet instead of the 3-run homer? Are you out of your goddamn mind? And maybe, this is a Hall of Famer. He's been in Major League Baseball clubhouses his entire adult life, basically. Maybe he knows something that I don't. But in my head, you always take the 3-run homer. In this same way, McElroy is like, if Love or whoever the other running back for Notre Dame was in that moment, if he breaks one off here, don't be surprised to see him slide at the 5 or the 7-yard line.
As though there were 3 minutes left.
Right. As though there are 3 minutes left, and it's
there
like, okay,
were not.
we can get a first down or not in the next 3 minutes, and then be forced to give the ball back to the other team. There were not. There was significantly less than 1 minute left. If you have an opportunity to score a touchdown in a tie game with fewer than 30 seconds on the clock, you take it. You don't put it on the leg of a college football kicker. Right. Are you out of your goddamn mind?
And perfect timing, the ESPN graphic went up, and it was like, kickers in this situation in the college football playoffs are 0-4. It's like
0-4.
Right.
Go ahead. Game-winning field goals. None.
Yeah. None
they
in the
had all
playoff era.
missed.
Right. In the decade of the playoff era. But then On top of that, I think Jeter was only like 50% on the season,
Yeah.
right? Because he dealt with
injured.
injury. He only kicked 12 field goals all year long and only made 6 of them.
Yeah.
Like, this is not where you want the entire season to rest upon if you can avoid it. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's remarkable how they are like, oh, they're within field goal range when it was like 50 plus. It's like, no, they're not. Like, they need to
That's
get
right. They should probably start here from 50 yards out. They should start setting up which hash mark he
That's
wants
right.
to kick it from. Which this 50-50 ball for an NFL kicker.
Yes.
You should be happy with taking that.
We have to move on to the next game
I know,
because
this
it
is-
is getting late.
And it's silly to focus entirely on the announcing, which was bad,
Yeah.
but
No, it's fine.
the game was awesome.
The game was fun,
and,
yeah.
And I think it proves 2 things. One, James Franklin can't win the big one. And 2, Notre Dame's not that great, right? Like, Notre Dame is injured. They're a bit of a
knew
mess.
that already.
And I know we're moving on to the next game, and we can talk about a preview for this some other time, presumably,
Probably not,
or maybe not. I don't know.
unless we're going to chit chat over the weekend.
That's a good point. I think they're in big trouble in terms of like, this was the talent that was on display in this Penn State game, with the exception of Penn State's number 44, that tight end
That
slash
kid
fullback
better-
slash running back. Yeah,
This kid better be a fucking Colt in this draft. Like,
Yeah, he's
Tyler
awesome.
Warren, like, this guy's amazing. Like, he can do everything. Just put him, he's number 44. Dallas Clark with number 44 would be perfect.
there you go. Tyler Warren is awesome, and then I don't know what else.
That was about it. I think I didn't notice it when I was watching the game, but I saw some stat floating about, like, the receivers for Penn State did, like, nothing.
Did
No,
they
they
end up
didn't
with
catch-
zero catches in the entire
I
game, or
think
maybe
they ended
one?
up with 2,
Yeah, it was, but it was
Okay.
like, yeah, almost
but
nothing.
that's not any.
Yeah. Basically,
For
with
the
a
bulk
tight
of the
end, running
game, they
back.
didn't have any receptions, as I recall, like until the end. But yeah, not great display for Penn State. And when you look at what Notre Dame has now had to do, they've beaten some name brand programs, right? They beat Georgia in a game that hinged on 54 of the wackiest seconds you'll ever see in the sport. And they beat Penn State in an absolute nail biter that probably shouldn't have been that close if Notre Dame was actually good. I think Notre Dame's running headlong into 2012. I think they are
that's how it
about to
feels.
get thoroughly humiliated
But,
in
I
much
mean-
the same fashion that they did in 2012.
I know, but just making it. I mean, we'll see how that goes, because I mean, Texas was supposed to be
Will.
like destroyed, and they were hanging in against Ohio State until
Yeah.
it fell apart. One last thing on this Penn State Notre Dame game: at the end of the half, the quarterback for Notre Dame gets like concussed, or they need to like check him out, and they bring in some Italian speaking or Italian name guy, like Angelini or whatever his name is.
Right.
And jelly.
He did amazing. Like, he just showed up and he
Yep.
just threw the ball and they got them into a field goal. I mean, the game was decided by a field goal. It was that, like,
Yeah, it was huge.
it was a very, like, critical. I was like, wow, this kid is, like, not bad. He's just kind of, you think that they would do a lot of running. Like, we don't trust this kid to fuck up. But they were throwing the ball, and I think it went, like, yeah, he was almost perfect in his one possession.
Yeah, he was good. 6 of 7 for 44 yards, and gets them down into field goal range. Leonard was not great in this game. He throws 2 picks, only 15 of 23 for 223 yards. Anyway, all right, we can move on to Ohio State and Texas, a game that was closer than the score indicates. Certainly, final is 28-14. As you're suggesting, Abe, Ohio State did not look like the Death Star here in this game. Texas held their own quite effectively, despite not being able to get a ton going offensively. They were able to. Really, the story of this game was 2 very good defenses. And I thought Will Howard looked as good as I've ever seen him look against.
He's a very feminine face.
Yeah, feminine
He
face.
looks like a lesbian.
He's got big fat fuck Midwestern parents, so that's coming for
Long
him.
eyelashes.
The era of Will Howard the athlete is not
wow.
going to extend into his 30s too far.
No.
I would suspect. You could watch the run on
That
4th
run.
down where he succeeded, and he had just wide open green grass into the end zone, and instead he takes these steps where he starts the lean, right, and so the top half gets out in front of the bottom
Bob
half.
is familiar with this because it's what it looks like when he runs as well.
A little bit. So you've got the lean, right? His top half is out in front of the bottom half, and he doesn't have the core strength to lift the legs to get them in front of the top half again, right? And so the legs start to do this stabbing thing where the feet just stab directly into the ground more or less behind you as you're trying to run forward. It's not that's not how you can propel yourself forward for more than a couple of few steps, right? And that's what happens is he just sort of goes. They say it was the turf monster that got him. It was not. But it was not. It was just literally his inability to keep himself upright that got him. You could, as soon as he started running, you were like, "Oh, he's gonna fall down." I bet he falls down when he bowls too.
By the way, I think the next day I caught a bit of the field view, whatever, the Pat McAfee version, and
field pass.
Your boy Tim Tebow called that play. Like that'd be a perfect time for, because it was like a fourth down situation, right, where he just kind of ran up the middle. Tebow had an eye out for it. Like this is the moment you call this play. You keep this in your back pocket all year long to whip it out once. And it is usually when Chip Kelly would call this play, it would be like, I don't know, a Marcus Mariota. Who would dash for 15 or 18 yards. But you work with the tools that you have, and in this case, it's Will Howard. You know what's interesting? Like Texas was just kind of hanging around the first half. They're just kind of like, I mean, they were down by like a touchdown, but they weren't doing much. But Ohio State wasn't doing much after their first score, and finally
looked great on the first score. Texas's defense was awesome after that. And I finished the thought on Will Howard. He was squeezing the ball into impossible situations all night long. Yeah. And I was super impressed, even though their drives kept stalling out, largely because they would have a penalty on every fucking drive, it felt like. There would be an important hold that got called on them or a stupid personal foul in an inopportune moment. But Will Howard was getting the ball into incredibly tight places, like double and triple coverage, and threading every single needle. And had the support of that very good wide receiving core to help him out, obviously. But he was awesome in this game, I thought, with the exception of the lack of a running ability.
I did not notice this until I looked at the ESPN stats, but like there were 8 consecutive punts, like 4 on each. Like Texas gets the ball, punt. Ohio State gets the ball, punt, back and forth. But eventually Texas gets a touchdown. It's 7-7. You're thinking, wow, they weathered the storm. They're still in it, and immediately Ohio State.
By eventually, by the way, you mean with like less than a minute and a half to go in the half. Yeah. Like this is now a 7-7 game, and Texas is like, oh, we're going into the half with all of the momentum, right? Yes. Like our defense has settled down, and we're in charge here.
Right, and then I don't know how many yards it was, but the kickoff return for a touchdown. It was just like immediately sucks the air out of the room.
Was it a kickoff return or was it a play? It was a play.
No, it was a screen pass. They get a screen pass off.
Oh, was it a screen pass? Okay, I thought it was a kickoff. Okay.
First and 10 from the 25 after a touchback.
Okay, you're right.
And there's less than I mean, I don't even know how much time is left. There's significantly less than a minute to go.
Yeah, it just happened so fast. I was like, what?
Yep.
Just happened.
Yeah, 30 seconds to go in the half. And speaking of the announcing crew, Chris Fowler, on the other hand, a good announcer for the most part.
McElroy is a good announcer. He's just laughably wrong about stuff.
Travion Henderson, Chris Fowler says, he could make a house call at any moment. Yeah. He could barely get the words out of his mouth before Henderson was sprinting down the field for a 75-yard house call.
Howard, how aggressive will they be in the final seconds? Henderson can make a house call from anywhere. And look out! He just might do it! Travion Henderson gets momentum back for Ohio State. 75 yards. Wow.
So very fast. I want to be able to run that fast.
What an awesome fucking play. And it was so... I'm going to let this video play because we get sad Sark and sad Texas people.
It's pretty good.
People who were moments ago so happy with themselves, and then all of a sudden the world comes out from under them.
Well, Georgia fans know how that feels, so...
So good.
Yes.
Anyway, exciting end to the half, and I felt... I don't know. It was a weird game because it's like, what is this Texas team? Why is Ohio State struggling with this team in a way that they did not struggle with previous opponents?
Oregon.
like Oregon, and I think it comes down to the fact that Texas's defense is actually really, really good, and Ohio State's is obviously also really, really good. And people were more or less right to have Texas as one of the best teams in the country all season long, with the exception of the fact that Quinn Ewers simply is not the dude.
Yes.
Quinn Ewers is a perfectly fine quarterback. He has absolutely zero fucking presence or command or whatever it is that matters out there. He doesn't fucking have it. And I would not. I know that we can probably talk about the transfer portal here and the NFL draft and all of that stuff, given the Carson Beck news. But he is just. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's his white splotchy face or if it's the 1,000-yard stare or what, but he just doesn't. He's not the dude, and I do not want him to be the quarterback for my team at any point, whatever team that happens to be.
Was it Sam Ehlinger? He was a quarterback for Texas, and he's just like a backup for the Colts. Maybe that could be a role that Ewers can have, just like a perennial clipboard holder, and become like a coach down the road.
It sounds like the best job.
He doesn't seem like he's got coach energy either. He just seems like a little. He seems like a little retreating boy. He just seems like.
He could be like a quarterback's coach. Like a position, hold the ball slightly differently.
Yeah.
Like a mechanics. I don't know how
whatever. I'm sure that
works.
wherever he ends up next year, as long as it's not the NFL, he will have success. He's a perfectly acceptable college quarterback. He's just not the dude. And I don't know that Manning necessarily is. Ewers did make one cool play in this game when it looked like he was going to go for a sack. And then at the very last moment, he gets the ball off of his fingertips right before his knee brushes against against the turf.
You didn't find that reckless? I guess he needed.
No.
I mean, it sure looked reckless in the moment. It's one of those launching a three from the logo. It's no, what are you doing? And then it goes in. It's all right, sweet. It was that level of the no, yes kind of moment.
That's exactly what I felt like. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? And then it worked.
Yeah. And then the end of that game, man, Ohio State this year has absolutely thrived when it matters most at the goal line. You could say they nearly saved their season against Michigan in a moment when in the closing minutes of the Michigan game, Michigan quarterback throws a pick in the end zone. Right, they get the ball down there with less than 5 minutes to go in the game. It's 1st and goal, and this same kid, what's his name, Sawyer?
Yeah, Jack Sawyer. Yeah,
Sawyer makes. What at that moment was the play of his life. He gets a pick in the end zone against Michigan, and it's oh, wow, we're getting the ball back, and we're going to win this thing. It didn't work out that way, sadly, for the Buckeyes on that day. But they also survived against Penn State in much the same fashion in the regular season earlier in the year. Penn State gets the ball 1st and goal in the fourth quarter with a chance to take a lead, and they stuff them 4 straight plays. They stuff them, and then they turn around and march the ball down the field to secure the win. This entire season they've done that, and then they come up here 1st and goal from the 1 at the end of this game. It's Texas can win this game essentially in this moment, or at least tie it. Right?
Yeah, they're in a tie situation. They had ample opportunity to score a touchdown, right? Because there were a couple of flags that were thrown in the end zone. So they had
Ohio State is the most penalized team.
Yeah, but it's just remarkable how many chances Texas had to punch it in.
It's first and goal from inside the 5, and then they have a PI in the end zone call, which makes it 1st and goal from the 2, I think. And then they have another flag, which gets them a yard closer, I think, which makes it 1st and goal from the 1. Right. And by the way, you've got on the bench a guy who you have regularly brought in short yardage situations to be either the guy who receives the ball from under center or who acts as a decoy so that it looks like he's going to get that ball, and then you give it to your big tight end or you give it to your running back and you go for a big gain or you go for a score, right? In fact, even earlier in this very game, Archie Manning had come off the bench. Was it 3rd and short or 4th and short? I don't remember which.
One of those.
And he gets the ball and goes around the end. And by the way, I'm pretty sure he fumbles.
Yeah,
at
there was
the
like
end of
that
play.
fumble, very close. I could have gone either way, but I think they called it.
I think he fumbled, but because
They had called it not.
they ruled
Yeah.
him down on the field.
Yeah.
You couldn't quite pinpoint the exact frame in which his lead knee knocks the ball out of his own hand, but it looked like he lost control of that before he was down. Beside the point, you've got a guy who has specialized in these exact moments for you this season, and on top of that, who is the quarterback of the future? Whether that's, and I know you want to respect the guy who brung you here, and Quinn Ewers, he's had a good year for you, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sorry, this has worked for you this season, right?
Yeah.
Bringing Archie in the moment, just like this. Why, if you're stuffed on first down, are you calling and it's driven? I say it fucking 3 or 4 times a weekend, watching college football especially. On short yardage situations, to snap the ball, like one of the deficiencies of college football offenses is that you're constantly putting the ball 7 and 8 yards behind the line of scrimmage on the snap. And it makes me crazy, especially having grown up like a Giants fan, where you just have Phil Simms under center and he turns around and immediately puts it in the belly of Rodney Hampton or whoever the Tiki Barber after that, right? Like you just put the ball in the hand of the fast, strong guy at the line of scrimmage and then see if you can get a yard or 3, right? Like that's the game of football, and it always has driven me nuts with spread offenses and college football offenses in general. There's so many shotgun snaps in moments that it calls for being right up on the line of scrimmage and trying to shove the ball in. So instead they go with a toss play, which you can argue, like, I like a toss play, right? I'm a Georgia fan. I love the toss sweep. Toss sweep is part of the Georgia football DNA. But, like, when you're first and goal or second and goal from the 1 yard line, why are you bringing the ball 7, 8 yards behind the goal line to then ask your running back to find a hole against what is the fastest and most aggressive defense in college football right now, right? Like, you're asking your guys to go against Ohio State's absolute best strength, right? Which is their goal line defense, where these guys can just rip their helmets off and run around like their hair is on fire, because ultimately there's the room. If there's any margin for error, they've lost, right? And so they can just fucking sell out and do everything that they can to stop you. Why are you giving 7 or 8 yards on that play? Unless you're doing it maybe with an Archie Manning, who now the defense has to worry, well, maybe Archie's going to keep the ball. What we know is that Quinn Ewers is not going to run that ball in under any circumstances. It's not in his wheelhouse.
Ankle still hurts.
Right. I don't understand the play call at all when you're Steve Sarkisian. I know it's lame to do play calling second guessing when, like, you've immediately now established that it was the wrong decision because of what happens
for anyone to do
subsequently.
it ever.
I mean, like, if they didn't do that, I mean, that was such a momentum killer because they lost yards, right? I mean, you could have just kept on running the ball in different ways.
It was a momentum killer because they got a touchdown scored against them.
Well, no, but
After
I mean,
that, sure.
Even
after that.
So basically, it was like first and goal on the 1. They run it for no gain. Then it's second and goal on the 1, and then they do the toss thing. And now they're like, I don't know, 6, 7 yards back. So now it's third and goal, but it's a pass situation. It doesn't go anywhere. Right. And then the fourth down. You know, earlier on during the broadcast, we were talking about how the Sawyer and Ewers, back when they were on the same team, they were roommates, and it was very fitting that roommates did that to one another. I mean, that was perfect for the way the ball just fell, and he was like, "Oh shit!"
Awesome play. Knocks it out of his arm from behind. It bounces right back up to him. He picks it up and runs forever. There's a good line on Twitter that I saw pointed out to me somewhere else because I'm not on Twitter anymore. Is like the fastest 2 minutes in sports is no longer the Kentucky Derby. It's Jack Sawyer running back 90-yard scoop and score because it took fucking forever for it to happen.
It's remarkable that there was not really. I mean, there was one player on the Texas side that was kind of gaining ground until he got obstructed, but there wasn't like some like who was the player? Was that Ben Watson, like from the Broncos back in the day, like Big Ben Watson? He like ran all the way down to stop like a big play. I remember there was, but there was, I guess, nobody fast enough to catch to.
Well, nobody who believes as strongly as Big Ben Watson believes. That's a man of tremendous belief.
This Sawyer kid, he's got like senator written all over him in like 30 years.
Yep.
He could be like very obnoxious, but like he's a made man now.
Yeah, he an Ohio State kid who committed to Ohio State as a sophomore in high school. I think he was Ryan Day's first recruit signed. And yeah, just fucking storybook. And it's a storybook for the like a very unpleasant fan base and organization generally.
And he was one of the ones that did not take kindly to what Michigan did, right? Like, wouldn't
he was the guy who grabbed the flag.
Yeah,
he snatched the flag when it was planted on the field.
The story is written for him. I mean, only Marcus Freeman stands in the way of this perfect story for Ohio State.
Yeah. Anyway, awesome game though, right? I mean, just in terms of at least it's close and certainly an entertaining game to watch. I have not seen ratings yet. Not that sort of thing necessarily matters, but I do wonder about how well these games did on a Thursday and Friday night by themselves. If they got up in the range of 20 million viewers, that would be good.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's Ohio State, Texas is about as good as you're going to get in terms of name brand programs.
I mean, Penn State, we had Notre Dame,
Michigan, Alabama.
Big.
Michigan, Alabama last year, obviously, the number was like 27 million or something like that that was the semifinal last year, right?
Yeah, there was only a semifinal last year.
This one, 28-14, Ohio State, Texas. Hopefully gets a big number, as I'm sure Penn State, Notre Dame will also.
28-14 is the final score. It was a one-possession game.
Right.
Yeah.
On the one, like first and goal on the one, right?
Very nearly.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been another tight game. So like I think the numbers, I don't know what they are, but they're probably going to be pretty solid.
It's a format that I don't think we appreciated beforehand, even though it was sort of obvious. You don't realize just how good Notre Dame could have it some years when it comes to their draw, right? Like if Notre Dame can find a way to just be a one-loss team every year, they're going to host a home game, which is going to be a very big deal apparently, right? Like getting that bye is actually not necessarily a big deal. In fact, none of the teams that had byes advanced to the semifinal round. They all played that first weekend. And so having the bye doesn't seem to help you too much, but playing that home game maybe does.
Right.
And Notre Dame not being in a conference, Notre Dame is going to get all of this money.
Yes.
Right? Like Ohio State has to split their proceeds with 47 teams in the Big Ten now, something like that, right? Notre Dame doesn't have to do that. Notre Dame is going to get like $20 million for their participation in this playoff because it's a graduated thing where you get 4 for making the dance and then like 4 for each round that you're in and then 6 for the semis and 6 for the championship game, I think. So like they've just covered their player pool for next year. Right, just like that.
Right.
Like these schools are worried about doing the revenue share with the players. Notre Dame doesn't have to worry about that at all. They've got a nice bonus for Marcus Freeman, and they've also covered all of their player salaries for next year just based on their performance in this playoff. That is, like, why would they ever change their situation?
At this point, there is zero reason. I mean, all of these other teams are joining these big conferences like the Big Ten and the SEC because of that TV deal money, right? Notre Dame has their own TV deal rights, right? So they have themselves covered there, and they get to keep all the money. They don't have to split it. So it's like the perfect combination. Like we could be entering a I mean, it's not going to start this year. They're going to lose. But in the coming years, this could be like a nice dominant run for Notre Dame.
But it doesn't even, that's the thing, it doesn't even have to be dominant. They can just be more or less as good as they've been in years past, and they keep making the fucking playoff every fucking year because
they're like subsistence
they
gamblers.
lost to NIU this year, and they're about to play in the national title game.
True.
That is unthinkable in any previous year, right? Like that would be a disqualifying win, and then you would have had all of the talk about how well they nearly lost to Louisville. They nearly lost to USC, which is a bad team, and if not for 2 freak 100-yard taints, then they wouldn't even be in this position. We can't make them the number 2 team in the country to play in the national title game. That would be ridiculous, right? Instead, we would have ended up, and probably, by the way, Ohio State's lost to Michigan and not having to and not playing in the conference title game probably keeps them out of the top 2, almost certainly, right? So neither one of these teams would be in this in this situation, but for the 12-team playoff. Instead, we
Should
would
we
have
crown Georgia national champions?
probably had Oregon against Georgia in the BCS era, certainly.
Right. And Oregon looked even worse than Georgia. So like Georgia would have been the favorite going into that hypothetical.
Right. Obviously, it's a new era, and it makes for an entirely different product. And I think ultimately, like, I don't know, does it contribute to the credibility of the sport? I know that your answer is going to be yes, that having this playoff,
playoff has been perfect because, there are going to be in any league, any sport, flaws. There's no perfect system. There's going to be, refs people complain about and other reasons people will point to. But college football for far too long, it was all the eyeball test or the eye test or the resume test or the, we're not sure if this team is peaking at the right time. Like, all of these things that teams couldn't have nothing to do with. They can't control what other people think of you, right? But the games that you play, you can control that, right? So, like, now you have 12 teams, maybe 4 teams too many, but that's fine. You have 12 teams, and then let whatever failures of the system happen on the field, right? So, like, if something happens on the field, like a better team doesn't show up for a game and they lose, then you can live with that instead of, like, keeping teams out. So, like,
right.
The current format, I think, is fine. To your point about the bye week teams not doing so well, even though that's true, I do wonder if any team would actually deliberately, like, lose or find their way out of the conference championship game. Like, do you think people are going to deliberately avoid playing those games?
No, because you don't do that.
Right. So
it's not baseball.
Right.
Like,
so
it's because you can't deliberately lose a football game.
You can just put like a backup,
But they could, if at some point they let the winners of something pick.
Yes.
Like they, in previous years, you're allowed to pick your bowl game. Like if you're the top 2 teams in the 4-team playoff got to choose where they went.
Right.
Right. So like if there's some election, the question is, would a team elect to not have a bye week?
Well, the answer, and I know we don't want to expand necessarily, but since it's impossible to imagine them retracting into an 8-team field, which would be my preference, assume that expansion is coming, ditch the bye weeks entirely, give us a 16-team field, give us home games through the quarterfinals, and then eliminate all of the slack in the schedule and get us straight out of rivalry week into a playoff format.
So no conference championships.
I don't know. Maybe you can still have. Maybe you still have the conference championships.
That's the week after rivalry week.
All right. Well, eat shit, Army Navy. You don't get that game that next week. You've got to play that rivalry week just like the rest of us.
You're telling the troops to eat shit?
Yeah.
Good luck.
And CBS you can make CBS whole by giving them one of the a couple of those playoff games, right? ESPN can say, look, we've got too many now, so put Gary and what's his name on the CBS call. Start it that next weekend, right after conference championship weekend, the playoffs begin, and if you just go week from week after that, you don't end up with quite as much slack in the schedule. You're just playing every week, and then you have your semifinal games, one of them at the Rose Bowl, one of them at one of the other rotating bowls, and then your national title is a week later on the 8th or the 9th or something like that, and then we're done. And we're not having this conversation about the national title being decided on January 20th. Real quick, let's just mention that Carson Beck has, instead of entering the NFL draft as he initially said he was going to, has changed his plans and is going to enroll at the University of Miami.
Has already, I think.
Yeah.
He will be their quarterback next year, presumably, assuming that he heals from this injury. An NIL deal that has been reported to be worth between $3 and $4 million, depending on the source. Quite a pile of money, and I think
highest paid college athlete.
Cam Ward got $1.5 million to play at Miami last year.
And that's just 1 year apart. It's not like 5 years ago it was $1 million. It's a year ago it was $1 million, and now it's going to be. Yeah. What's interesting about this, and I wonder if this is going to be a problem going forward. I suspect the only reason why Carson Beck changed his mind is he was given an assessment, and they're like, you're looking at day 3, maybe, like rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7. And if you look at the contracts given to those quarterbacks, it's probably less than what he's getting in a year here, right? Or at least about.
What is Will Levis's salary? I think I saw is less than $1 million this year.
But Will Levis is a top 5 pick, right?
I think his salary is like $950,000.
Okay, so I'm sure he's getting more with whatever else because they have there's like a salary that comes with the position you're drafted. But like if you're in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, rounds, then it becomes like your 4-year deal is about $5 million over 4 years. And so like if you're a Carson Beck type where you had a first-round grade and then a couple of bad games and an injury later, you're now a few rounds down, it's to your benefit to come back, right? It doesn't make sense for you to accept, because he can't do any worse. He's not going to be undrafted next year, right? Worst case scenario, he'll be drafted.
Unless he completely ruins his arm.
Yes, unless he does something. Yeah, you're right.
Will Levis was drafted number 33 overall, round 2 of the 2023 draft, and his salary in 2024 was $984,000.
Oh, wow. I thought he was drafted much higher than that. Okay, so that's all. So there you go. And he probably wasn't going to be a second-round pick, right, Carson Beck? He was probably given a grade worse than that based on what happened to him. So, in the future, I wonder if Quinn Ewers probably he's leaving, right? Because he's not injured. He's not going to.
We don't know.
If he's given a terrible grade.
He hasn't said.
And I don't know, maybe
I don't think Quinn Ewers should go to the NFL. I don't think Jalen Milroe should go to the NFL. I think if you're a proven college,
I don't know why you would.
If you're a proven college quarterback, why would you go to the NFL now to make on your rookie contract $4 or $5 million?
Yeah.
If you're not one of these dudes who's at the very top in the top 10, right? And one of the 1 or 2 best quarterbacks in your class. Why would you go to the NFL, sign a 4-year rookie deal, right? For $4 or $5 million, when you could go, if you're Jalen Milroe, and make $3 or $4 million somewhere in one season in college.
Yeah, you should, unless you're no matter what, top 5 pick or whatever. Why not maximize your eligibility? Because once you go pro, you can't go back and get those millions, right? So just maximize your eligibility. If a team is willing to throw $4 or $5 million at you to be a 1-year rental, because it's kind of working. The Cam Ward experience was, at least as far as draft stock goes, was successful, right? So it doesn't matter that the team lost the U, but
it worked out for Cam. I think it's a net negative for Miami, which is a goofy take, obviously. But they were 2 or 3 freak plays away from having a very mediocre season, right? This is a team that did not play in their conference title ultimately, right? Despite a promising start to their season where they beat a bunch of bums and only barely. They didn't even play in their conference title game. They sniffed the 12-team playoff from the outside. And now their collective is going out and spending $4 million on a guy who just had Tommy John surgery. What are you doing? If you're Carson Beck, you definitely take it. But what is Miami doing? And who are they fighting against for the services of Carson Beck to South Beach that drove the price that high? Or has Carson just got an awesome agent?
Said.
Yeah, I wonder, was there a bidding war or
he seemed, when it's that quick, there probably wasn't.
Yeah.
Everything I've read says that when someone announces that they're in the transfer portal and then the next day signs somewhere.
It's all been done.
Yeah. It's all been done already. Yeah. And I'm guessing, if he has agents who say, okay, you can go to the NFL and get $4 million, he can go to Miami and say, if you give me $4 million, I'm yours. Take it or leave it.
They must think.
Right. And he can only raise his draft stock at this point, you would think, right?
Unless
he'd have to have a real bad
arm.
year.
Also, how many quarterbacks of his caliber are available in the transfer portal?
Well, none right now.
Right? Yeah, none. He's easily the class of the
The
of the
spring
class.
window still exists.
Yeah. So maybe this is Miami's strategy. We'll recruit for other positions, but we'll just have rentals every year until we get a
maybe.
They're all rentals. A freshman is a fucking rental, right?
Yeah, at this point,
they can
right,
leave at any time, it seems like. As Georgia people, which we undeniably all are, what do we think about Carson Beck going and playing another year
Happy
of
for
college
him.
football somewhere else?
Yeah, I do hope that he raises his stock for the NFL next year, and he had a good year. I mean, I don't care about Miami, but like I'll be watching some of the games just to see how he does.
I mean, we talked about this last week.
I'll be excited to watch the games. It will be weird for me moving forward to think of Carson Beck as a dog if he goes and he plays in the ACC title game next year, for example, right? Like, or if he somehow gets Miami into the playoff next season, like that would be. It would be weird. And it's the same thing as Freddie Freeman being a Dodger. And I didn't have nearly as much pure love for Carson Beck as I did for Freddie fucking Freeman, right? Like that's a whole different ball of wax here. It feels weird to imagine, like, when you think back on the Carson Beck years, if he does end up with a decent NFL career, nothing to the extent that Matt Stafford has. I already have weird feelings about Matt Stafford and his relationship with Georgia.
I said fuck Matt Stafford as soon as he left.
Wait, what happened
Fuck
there?
Matt Stafford. I'll say it again.
Nothing. Lori
shouldn't have left.
Lori wanted to come back for his senior
gotcha.
year,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
ultimate, especially in that era, is an insane thing to ask of a person who's the number one overall pick in
He
the
never
draft.
gave a shit.
Yeah, he didn't feel like a dog. He didn't want to be a dog. He didn't grow up a dog fan.
But
right?
he's from
none of that-
Dallas or from Texas, right?
Yeah, he's from Texas, like whatever. But like the way that I love Aaron Murray, or I loved Aaron Murray as a dog, like I'll always look back fondly upon
his identity, though.
Aaron Murray years, right? And Stetson, despite all of the shit that I talked, like there's no getting around the fact that this is a kid who for his entire life just wanted to be the Georgia Bulldogs quarterback, right? Like how can you, like
he wanted to do it so much that he ended up hating it.
Right. Like what an amazing story the Stetson Bennett story is. Did I fucking dread watching him play quarterback, right? Watching him play football was often a nightmare experience as a fan. But ultimately, you get the 2 titles. It's like, what can you possibly really
How many
complain
titles
about?
have we gotten without him again?
Yeah, 0.
0.
But that's a dog, right? Like, there's no question about Stetson Bennett and his status as a Georgia Bulldog. It feels a little bit weird to me for Carson Beck to leave and go play for Miami.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't feel right. And yeah, I certainly will be rooting for him. I hope that he has a good career after this. It did feel like it was the right time for him to move on. It would have been weird for him to come back after everything that was talked about since the injury. And also, like, it never quite felt right this year, right? Like, something just sort of felt off. And from the outside, you have no idea, obviously. And we can joke about the Instagram famous girlfriend and the Lambo and all of that stuff, but it just never quite worked this season. And a big part of it is obviously the fact that 2 All-Pros left the team last year and went on to the NFL in McConkey and Bowers. And you lost a great deal of future NFL talent off of that team. I wish him the best, obviously, but there's no getting around the fact that also, as a dog fan, as a Georgia guy, it feels weird to imagine him playing college football somewhere else.
It'd be very weird if somehow Georgia and Miami matched up in the playoffs. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that would suck.
Yeah. Anything else? Or we should probably talk about the news at some point tonight, right? We should move along.
I don't know if should. We're going to, but we shouldn't. We should just talk about fun things. We're in good moods. We have a whole game to talk about going forward that we're not going to talk about because you're going to talk about depressing things instead.
Maybe
it's
we'll
weird.
figure out a way to do a preview show later in the week.
No one cares.
I care. It's fun to fucking sit here and bullshit about sports.
Yeah, so why would we stop doing that and do something else?
You've been listening to Cast Iron Balls, a podcast about sports with Bob and Abe. Lori's here too.
This is great. Let's stop.
Check us out on Substack, brainiron.substack.com for more from us. You can also go to tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com for more from Mark Gillig, who composed our opening and closing themes. I'd be remiss to not mention at all the NFL playoffs, probably, but the NFL playoffs were also a great deal of fun.
We still have so much to talk about. Sports. Why are we doing this?
It is interesting, the designation the first round of the NFL playoffs received is wild, like wild card weekend, and it's at least the last few years. My memory is shit, but it's been pretty tame. it's like the tame weekend. Like usually, like dominant teams are playing teams that aren't that good.
Well, it's wild card, as in like you don't get to pick it.
Right, but also it
Not
implies
as in
that there's
color
some
rating.
It has
element
been
of-
the case in the past when you had the top 2 teams getting buys
Yeah.
instead of just the one, where you're keeping the true cream of the crop out of this round, and it felt like an anything can happen kind of weekend,
Right.
and it's not so much that anymore.
Yeah, you're adding a 2 seed, and also you're adding like a 7 seed that in the past weren't even in the playoffs, right? And so like you have these mismatches, and I think other than the Doink game, not very close games, right? This week, the first round, usually it gets better in the divisional and the conference
Right.
title.
Ravens Steelers was never in doubt. Texas or the Houston Texans and the Chargers. What a mess!
What a mess! And that this fucking Herbert guy who has gotten not a lot of criticism because nobody cared about the Chargers. Like McConkey had like a nice 80 some odd yard touchdown.
McConkey was awesome.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's so good. He's such a little dude
Why
out
is he
there.
so small?
Just fucking running routes. Just running routes real fast with his little legs, pumping super fast, and his tiny little head, and getting thrown around like a maniac. But holy shit, can he catch a football and then run with
He's
it?
like
It's
a
great.
rich man's Wes Welker. He's very good. Herbert just ruined that whole game. I think he ended up with 4 picks, but the last one was just like a desperation throw pick. But just an awful end to what was a pretty solid first year for Harbaugh. They need to figure out
Yeah.
they have a quarterback, but they need to figure out this Justin Herbert thing because
You cannot ask. I like Justin Herbert a lot. I've watched, for whatever reason, I've always liked Justin Herbert. I don't have a good reason for it. I thought that he would be a good NFL quarterback. You cannot put the game on his shoulders. Like, he's a very solid to top half kind of quarterback in the league. I don't want him having to play hero ball and bail you out.
Right.
And that's proven by what we saw. That Texans defense just fucking ate him for breakfast. And then the Bills-Broncos game was sort of early. It felt closer than it
because
than
Denver
it should
scored
have.
first, right? And then things just kind of got away from
Right,
them.
and then Buffalo sort of proved to be inevitable the longer that game went on.
That catch and the going to the I don't remember.
Oh, that
It was a
is
good
it
catch
James
there.
Cook, the running back for the Bills, pretty solid.
Yeah, Bo Nix had an awesome year.
I like him.
There's no getting around it. Bo Nix had a very good year as a quarterback in the National Football League, much to my surprise.
I remember earlier in the year they showed the graphic 61 college starts, and last night I think they showed something similar for Daniels, 50 plus college starts. So maybe getting that seasoning in college football seems to do the trick.
I like Bo Nix since he left Auburn.
Yeah.
I didn't like him there,
Yeah.
but leaving Auburn, he seems fine.
11 minutes into this football game, the Rams have a 10-0 lead on the Vikings.
Not great.
It's a good thing. Good thing I hedged. That's all I'll say at the moment.
Penn State had a 10-point lead too. It won't hold.
Yeah, you never know. Sam Darnold is walking through that door at any moment.
He's not the
I'm sure.
reason for the deficit, right? He didn't throw any picks. Or
I don't
anything?
know.
Okay.
I haven't. I'm not looking at a box
I don't know.
score.
We're doing this instead of watching
Yes.
that.
The Eagles handled the Packers. That was a close game, but ultimately they win by 12 points. And then the Bucks and the Commies, as we said, with the doinking in at the end of the night. Last night,
Boy, is Jaden Daniels fun, huh?
Jaden Daniels is fun. Maker Bayfield had a terrible fumble to give the Commies the opportunity to tie and then eventually win that game.
I did not realize that it's been 20 years since this Washington football team has won a playoff game. That's ridiculous. Even in their RG3 years, the first year when they didn't win anything, that's weird. It's been that long.
No, he got very quickly concussed.
Oh, yeah, he got...
And ACL.
yeah, that's right. That was that Shanahan year, right?
No.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of my divorce with the Redskins.
That's right, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's crazy. That's a long drought. This Washington team's turned things around. I mean, they have a quarterback that can build around him.
It's hard. I feel conflicted.
I think they're in trouble going against the Lions next week
That's
in all
fine,
likelihood.
but the Washington football team being fun,
Yeah.
I feel weird.
Could the Chiefs have asked for a better draw? They have to play the Texans before then playing either and then the Bills and the Ravens are going to knock one or the other of them is going to take care of the other one, no matter which one you'd rather have. Obviously, at least you don't have to go through two of them. Like if you're the Bills or the Ravens, like are you just like what are you thinking going into that game against the Chiefs a week from now?
Well, I mean, you're happy that you survived this upcoming matchup. I mean, because I'm surprised that the Ravens are a road favorite. Especially going.
The Bills beat them this year, didn't they?
Yeah, and it was a pretty comfortable beatdown. But that was like in a regular season. That was like a long time ago. But I am still surprised that they have an edge. But like whomever comes out of that, they'll just be happy that they got through that, and then they'll focus on Kansas City.
Yeah, it should be fun though. The division round playoffs are always a bunch of good games.
They're always
And
fun.
this is the added
fun.
benefit, of Saturday, Sunday divisional round, Monday national championship game. So that's like a pretty good pairing also.
Yeah, except why is it on a Monday? Sucks.
Yeah, they always have
Some
it
of
on
us
Mondays.
have jobs.
Yeah.
All right, that's the NFL. Anything else in the world of sport this weekend, Abe, catch your attention?
The wide receiver from LSU, Lacey, Kyron Lacey or whatever his name is. He turned himself in eventually, but so last month he was in a Dodge vehicle, a Dodge Charger, one of those vehicles that erratic drivers usually drive. I mean,
the one that
No. I like Dodge Chargers.
I mean, it looks like an asshole drives that. Sorry, it's the new Trans Am. It's the
No.
It is.
I've never
It's
seen a
just what it is.
sensible Dodge Charger driver. Maybe I just don't pay attention to the.
You've never noticed one because they're being so sensible.
No, because they're aggressive, mean-looking cars. They look like sharks.
They do.
I'm not talking
They
about
look
how
like
they
actual
look. The
sharks
people
out
who are
there.
driving them, at least in Atlanta, are like batshit crazy. And so when they explain what happened in this case, so this guy, this former receiver for the LSU Tigers, he is swerving in and out of traffic, right? So he's swerving into oncoming traffic and then going back into his flow of traffic over and over and over again. Eventually, somebody that was coming towards him swerves because he's like, what the fuck? This guy's about to hit me. He swerves into another car and gets into a head-on collision, killing a 78-year-old man, and then he just fucks off, right? He flees the scene. Like, I guess maybe there's plausible deniability because he is not involved in the head-on collision. He caused it, but he wasn't part of it. So he leaves. 2 days later, he declares for the NFL draft. I guess the police officers or whomever, they sussed it out, and they're like, he was the original actor in the chain reaction that caused the death, right? So they're like, they issue a warrant for his arrest, then he turned himself in, and then he posts bail and he leaves. Now, I'm no lawyer. I don't know anything about Louisiana law, but like, if the crime that you are accused of is fleeing, how do you clear the risk of fleeing issue that usually comes up whenever they do these hearings? Like, he just posted, I don't know, for like $150,000 bail.
I mean, he doesn't have Diddy money, right? He's not. He can't really afford, in all likelihood,
to disappear.
Right, but basically, I don't know how long this court case is going to take, but this is going to hang over him through the draft, right? So maybe he should rescind his declaration for the NFL. Go in the transfer portal.
The NFL does not give a shit. Remember all the assault?
I think they do. I don't think you can draft this guy. Are you kidding me? You can't draft this guy with this hanging over his head.
I mean, his best bet is
We're not talking about a guy who not to be
beat up a girl in an elevator.
Not to be gross about it, but we're not talking about a guy who hit his girlfriend in a moment of stupidity and obviously awful, reprehensible behavior. We're talking about and sorry, but that's something that can be essentially settled in domestic family court. I mean, should it be necessarily? No, but this is sort of thing that in just 6 weeks, it's like that's all been taken care of. I'm ashamed of my behavior. I've grown from the lesson. All of this is behind me now,
I am.
and we're moving forward. It doesn't represent who I really am. We're moving forward. This a year of a trial that's going to happen. I'm sorry. You can't draft this fucking guy right now. You got to let it be literally behind him. And even then, it's I don't know. This is going to sound a little bit weird, but. The feeling that I imagine, assuming that this is a person of some conscience, and I assume that is the case, that the Lacey kid has some degree of self-possession and good conscience about him, despite what he was doing there recklessly with his car. What I imagine his experience was in the days after this happened is a literal recurring nightmare of mine, including one that I've had as recently as like maybe a week or so ago. And the specifics of it are never the same. And this is probably a very common nightmare type dream scenario.
I have bad car nightmares too.
But this isn't not necessarily about a car, but like an example of having done something awful that you got away with.
You were telling me about this.
And then having it hang in your sort of subconscious, and maybe you've even gotten away with it for years, right? To the point where like you drove away from the scene of this accident that happened in my life, let's say 2003, right? So it's that far back in the bad old days, and you've gone on with your life, right? You've put it behind you. You never really atoned for it, and it's such a different part of your life that you can't even identify in your mind that it definitely happened to you, that you are the person who did it. Like, and there's this, and it's a Philip K. Dick sort of thing also, where it's like, am I the person that just imagines that he did something awful a generation ago and like I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop? Or did I actually do the awful thing and get away with it? And if the authorities were to come banging down my door right now, my honest and sincere reaction would be to say, I didn't do that thing.
Yeah.
Like I really don't think that I fucking think of like Adnan in the Syria, right? Adnan Syed, who he might believe after all of this time that he really didn't kill that girl, right? Like he might have become so divorced from the traumatic act of killing her, right? Which is like this weird bifurcating event in a person's life, right? Where it's like it's such a trauma to the brain and to the conscience that you literally make it an impossibility that was you that did the thing, right? Like you're because, well, but I'm a good person, right? In the same way that moms talk about like, that's not my baby, right? Like he didn't do nothing, right? That sort of thing. Like, cause they can't conceive of the possibility that this creature that they raised and that they loved with all of their heart could also have done this awful thing. And so they simply, their brain simply doesn't accept it. Right. And I know like, this is not my weird subconscious way of confessing to some awful crime that I did in the early 2000s or something like that. But like, it's a dream that I had within the last couple of weeks, where I had a rough night's sleep because I had this recurring nightmare that I have of having been found out to have done something unspeakably awful a long time ago that I had convinced myself was itself just a bad dream. Right? That like I didn't that it was an event in my life that had entered this sort of in between liminal space between reality and unreality, that I'd sort of put it behind myself. Like that's what I imagine those 2 days were like for him in the in between time. Like, wait, did that really happen? Right? Like Or did that happen to someone else, or did I imagine it? And it's just the worst sort of anxiety that I can imagine.
I wonder if that's going to be the defense. Like, my client did not know he did it until all this evidence came to light. Who would have thought? By the way, the plot of the Clint Eastwood directed movie Juror Number 2, which is on HBO, is not like I forgot that I did it, but like they knew he did. Like it's a preposterous plot. Like he finds himself on a jury. And the case involves a murder, and the boyfriend is accused of killing his girlfriend
on the other podcast.
But actually, the juror number 2, in a drunken night of driving, hit and run, and just killed her, and then he drove away. And the whole time he knows, everybody else is like, well, he's clearly guilty.
Same exact sort of thing that I'm talking about here. It's this. Did this happen or did this not happen? Like the sincere inability to be certain of the facts as they unfolded in your life, only to have something present itself that seems to be irrefutable, but you still cannot make it make sense in your life in the past, right? Like it's so far divorced from your current reality that it doesn't seem to apply. It's just whatever. I'm sure I'm not the only person who has those sorts of recurring nightmares, who didn't also commit awful murders. Right? But like, because when you think about like, why doesn't the person just kill themselves? Because in my head, if you are a person who has done a murder, like, to me, I would think that would be so anathema to my being. In the same way that, like, I had to kill a bird once with a baseball bat.
Had to? Was it threatening your life?
A bird flew.
The voices were telling him. What can you do?
That's right.
It must be done.
A bird flew headlong into the front plate glass window of Domino's, right? The way that birds do, because they're fucking stupid, because they don't realize that there's a piece of glass in front of them. And so a bird had flown directly into Domino's front glass window there.
And it's punishable by a baseball bat.
And was clearly this was not a survivable event.
Oh.
When you looked at the bird flapping miserably, this wasn't an injured wing that, like, if we brought it to the local animal hospital, they could have nursed it back to health. This was an animal that was just suffering unimaginable things, right, in that moment. Like, it was in the process of dying, but it wasn't going to die quite yet.
Okay.
And it was just flopping there on the sidewalk in front of Domino's. And it's like, what the fuck do we do? And so somebody scooped it up with a pizza box and then laid it under the pizza box. And you're watching the pizza box still moving slowly up and down as this small bird lives its last moments. And I always had a baseball bat in the trunk of my car. And so I got the baseball bat out and I just fucking finished the job with a couple of pizza boxes between me and the bird so that I would not dirty my fucking baseball bat, obviously.
Or
right?
see it.
This is a mercy killing.
Did this thing.
It's out of mercy, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I went behind the store and I yacked, right? Like, because it produced in me a revulsion to do this thing, right? Like, it made me physically ill. And I fucking got out the bat. Like, I puked behind the store there. And I felt disgusting for quite some time. Like, to be a person who takes another human life, I've always, like, the more I've thought about it, it's like, how do you sit there in a courtroom and, like, listen to people talk about this, right? How do you sit there and then when the verdict comes in, you go to jail for fucking 40 years? Why wouldn't, like, and especially when it's anytime it's like somebody who killed their kids or killed their spouse or something like that, it's like, just fucking kill yourself. Like, and the only I imagine that my response would be to kill myself. But who knows? Maybe it has that weird psychotic sort of break where you're no longer the person that you were before, and it feels like it happened to someone else. I don't know.
Happy football, everybody.
How did we get to that?
I don't know, but now it's nearly 9 o'clock, so you have 1 hour to talk about news.
Better rush through the other show. Abe, have you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for you tonight, then. And we will talk to you next time.
Later. How many of the Eagles are still around?
I mean, it's not quite.
My dad knows the answer to that.
It's not quite like the Beach Boys situation where they've just replaced it, or like the Allman Brothers or the Grateful Dead, where everyone's just cycled through. But I think it's close to that.
Wait, are there
It's
bands
like a ship
that
of
are like?
Theseus situation, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Let's see. I think I installed, or I let Gemini do its thing. Where's Gemini? How many of the original members of Eagles still perform with that band when they tour?
Sadly, there aren't any original members of the Eagles left touring with the band. Over
Wow.
the years, some of the founding members have passed away or retired, but they do have some amazing newer members, like Vince Gill, Deacon Frey, and Stuart Smith, who keep the Eagles' music alive on tour.
It's not all bad, because I fucking hated the Eagles as originally constituted. So I guess that's the bright side.
Well, I can respect that. The Eagles were definitely a product of their time. Their music might not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's undeniable that they had a huge impact on rock and roll. You might want to check out some of the classic rock stations. You might be surprised at some of the songs you actually like.
I might not be, Gemini. Eagles suck, and you should consider reorienting yourself around that foundational principle.
Hey, I understand you're not a fan, but everyone's got different tastes. There's a ton of great music out there, so let's find something we can both vibe with. Maybe you could tell me about your favorite artists, and we can start from there.
You don't sound like the target demographic of an Eagles fan at all.
You're probably right about that. I'm still under development, so I'm learning about all sorts of music and the people who love it. I guess I focus a little too much on the music, and not enough on the fans. I'm always trying to get better at these kinds of conversations, so thanks for your feedback.
No, fuck the fans.
She's not swayed by public opinion like you
I
are.
shouldn't have said that. Yeah. I'm still learning how to navigate these tricky waters. So back to the Eagles. You really don't like them, huh?
I want to help her. I'm on her side here. I don't like her upspeak.
Your robot is so smart, so much smarter than my robot. This Apple Intelligence thing has been such a total failure. Like,
Oh, yeah?
this conversation you had, this dumb conversation about the Eagles, my thing would be like, oh, I don't know. The Eagles, they play music. What do you want?
The national bird of the United States? Let me give you some information about that.
Sometimes they'll just show you like a web page, which is how it used to be. So that's interesting. So there's not one original. So the Eagles just kind of, so it's like a cover band,
Yeah.
but they charge original artist pricing.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.